Hi everyone. A couple of years ago, I wrote a poem in Hindi titled Khushboo. Khushboo means fragrance, sweet smell. My poem is about the fragrance of my childhood, the memories of my childhood that always come to me like the fresh fragrance of a flower. And the time I spent with my grandmother, my mother, her sisters and parents in a joint family system at my ancestral home in Kerala. When I look back, I feel most of the things in the form of values, exposure to life and literature, music, all these things I got from my childhood and from those days I spent with my grandmother and my cousins and relatives. You all would agree that grandparents play a very vital role in the shaping of our personality. Khushwant Singh, in the story The Portrait of a Lady, writes about a grandmother and a grandson, the kind of bond they shared. And as the grandson grew up, how he started missing his grandmother, and towards the end of the story, when the grandmother passes away, how he feels the vacuum left behind by her. This is, in a nutshell, the whole story is. What I'm going to share with you is, this short story is not just the story of a grandmother and a grandson. It is the story of two generations. It is the story of a time in India when people were migrating from villages to cities. It is a time when urbanization started gradually taking over. A time when joint family system started disintegrating into nuclear family system. So Khushwant Singh is trying to give a portrait of a lady as well as a picture of the times. Remember always, a text that you study always has a context, a social context, from where it takes birth. In the story you will find the boy grew up in his village for the first few years of his life, early life, with his grandmother. And the kind of exposure, life lessons he got are valuable beyond words. The kind of education he got is not only his example, it is the kind of education that existed in India. Education in India was never a separate activity from day-to-day life, nature, etc. You must have heard about the Gurukul system. It was a holistic process. how the grandson went to the school with his grandmother. She would accompany him to the school, and they would carry last night's leftover rotis for the village dogs. He would feed the dogs. This is also education. And the school he goes to is attached to a temple. The teacher is the priest. What does he study there? About scriptures, God, and simple mathematics and elementary science. That's it. Happily comes back home with his grandmother. Classrooms and schools were not cut off from nature and the vast panorama of life. The great poet Rabindranath Tagore had started Shanti Niketan, the abode of peace, where he came out with this idea of his father that learning should take place in the lap of nature. Separating a person from nature is like fragmenting one's thinking. So a fragmented perception will only lead to a fragmented personality. The grandson and grandmother are compelled to shift to the city because the boy's parents are settled in the city. See, this shifting happened in different regions of India. So these two characters, grandmother and grandson, are representatives of the migration, a social phenomenon before independence. So in the city, he goes to an English school. He learns Western science, mathematics. There is no teaching about God and scriptures and all those traditional values and things he studied in the village. Life is so systematic. Life is cut off from the participation of everything around. There are no stray dogs. Grandmother feels very disappointed about this. This is a cultural shock for her. Because education for her is to strengthen our roots. It is not uprooting ourselves from our tradition. So grandmother feels quite upset about this and stops talking to the grandson after a while, and she doesn't complain about it because she knows that maybe this social change is unavoidable. But her silence means a lot. Her silence sends a message across to so many of us that don't lose your roots. Whether you get educated, whether you start working, let your knowledge not be limited to a cerebral activity. Let knowledge be assimilated into our system to understand and discover our culture and tradition. Grandmother resists the change. This is called cultural resistance. This happened all over the country. resisting the colonial culture. These kinds of stories have been written in regional languages, in our national language, to convey a very, very important message. All those writings have been, in fact, some or other forms of resistance. When we learn English, we know that it is inevitable. Let us not forget our roots. We are learning a language, and every language has its own cultural roots. Never forget your mother tongue, your national language. Never forget your home language. You may learn any foreign language. Very good. Very good for broadening your perspectives. But don't lose your roots. Thank you.